Hello everyone, this is Saurabh from Edureka, and in today's session we'll be focusing on Python sequences. So without any further ado, let us move forward and have a look at the agenda for today. First we'll see what are sequences, and then we'll see various operations that you can perform on sequences. After that we'll see various types of sequences available in Python, namely lists, tuples, strings, sets and dictionaries. So I hope we all are clear with the agenda. So what are sequences? Sequences can be considered as containers, and in those containers certain items are stored. Now you can consider the example that is there in front of your screen. So over here you can see that there are different types of cars present. So this becomes a sequence of cars, and each of the car become an item or an element of this particular sequence. So you have grey color car, you have blue, and so on. So all of these cars combined together forms a sequence. That is exactly what sequence is. There's no rocket science behind it. So this is what sequence is. So let's move forward and see what are the various operations that you can perform on these sequences. Alright, so these are the basic operations that you can perform with sequences. First comes concatenation, in which multiple sequences can be combined together with the help of certain operators that we'll be discussing later in the session. Then comes repetition. You want to repeat a particular sequence multiple times, so you can do that as well. After that comes membership testing, in which you can test whether that particular element or an item is a member of that sequence or not. After that comes slicing, in which you can slice particular range from that sequence. Imagine if you want only 2 cars out of here, you don't want all the 4 cars, so you can do that as well. Then comes indexing. Indexing is nothing but there is an index value for each of the items present in a sequence. So you have 0th index, then 1st, then 2nd, and then 3rd, and so on. Depends on the sequence length that you have. So we'll have a look at these operations one by one. So first comes concatenation and repetition. So the first thing is concatenation, and then we'll talk about repetition. So in concatenation, as I've told you earlier as well, you can actually combine multiple sequences together. So if you can see that when I go back to the previous slide, so over here you can see that we have 2 sequences, although they are exactly the same, but when you concatenate or when you add both of these sequences, it becomes one sequence, and that exactly what is concatenation. So let me show you what happens when you concatenate. So you get one single sequence, as you can notice over here. Now when we talk about repetition, in repetition, if you want to repeat that same sequence multiple times, so you can do that as well. So that is basically what repetition is. So I've repeated that particular sequence twice. You can repeat it thrice, 4 times, that doesn't matter. That is totally up to you. But you can perform a repetition as well on sequences. So let us move forward and see what are the other operations that you can perform with sequences. Now comes membership testing. Now let me give you an example of membership testing. As you can see that there is a car that is present here. So if you want to know whether this particular car is a member of this sequence or not, you can do that with the help of membership testing. As you can see that this car is currently not a member of this particular sequence, so it is not a member. But what about this car? As you can see, it is present in this sequence, that is at index 0 as well as at index 4. So it becomes a member of this particular sequence. So you can test that as well, whether that particular element belongs to a sequence or not. That is only membership testing. So we'll move forward and see what are the other operations that you can perform with sequences. Now comes indexing. So I've talked a lot about indexing in the previous slides as well, but let me tell you once again. So what happens in indexing, you have this particular sequence. And in Python, let me tell you guys, the indexing starts from 0 like other programming languages. So this car comes at index 0. This comes at 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th. So we have 8 elements in this particular sequence, and the index range is from 0 to 7th element. So this is what indexing is. So we'll move forward and see what are the other operations that you can perform with sequences. So slicing, as the name itself tells, what does it mean? It means that you slice something and then you use it, right? So over here also the same concept is applied. Now, as you can see that from the example itself, I want all the elements between index 1 till index 4, but it should not include the index 4. It'll actually give me all the elements starting from index 1 till index 4, but it won't include index 4. Now what are the elements present in between index 1 to index 4? You have this blue color car, then orange, and then this pretty cool green color car as well. So we have the first element, second element, and the third element, but it won't include the fourth element. So this is what slicing is. Let us move forward and see what are the various type of sequences available in Python. So these are the various types of sequences in Python. We'll start with lists, then we'll see what are tuples, then strings, sets, and then finally we'll see what are dictionaries. So we'll start with lists, so let us move forward with that. So what exactly are lists? So lists are sequences in which items are separated by comma and they are enclosed within square brackets. As you can see from the example itself, we have a list of fruits in which we have elements mango, apple, grapes, which are separated by comma and they are enclosed within square brackets. Now to some extent, lists are pretty much similar to arrays in C, but there is one major difference. But in arrays, you can store elements that are of the same data type. But in lists, you don't have that. You can store different kinds of data types. You can even store a number here. You can even store a string. You can store whatever you want in one same list. But when we talk about arrays, you need to have the same data type throughout that array. If it is an integer type, you need to make sure all the elements of that array are integers. Now there are various operations that you can perform with lists. You can append certain elements, then you can insert, you can extend the list as well, then you can find the indexes, then you can remove certain elements, you can sort it, reverse it. Then there are various other operations with lists, which I'll show you. So let's move forward and I'll show you practically how to deal with lists. So I'll open my PyCharm. So this is my PyCharm, guys. So first thing that I'll do, I'll define a list and I'm going to name it as subjects. And I'm going to store various strings in it. So I'll start with physics. And now let me tell you guys, when you're storing a string data type, you need to make sure that you enclose it within single quotes or double quotes. And Python cannot differentiate between single quotes or double quotes, so you can use whatever you want. Physics, then I'm going to store chemistry, then maths. All right, let's keep only 3 elements in this particular list. Now I'm going to define one more list. Let me name it as games. So we'll start with football. Then we'll put in cricket. And one more game that I want, I can say I like tennis as well. So yeah, let it be tennis. So now we have 2 lists. One is subjects, another is games. Now I'm going to perform various operations on these 2 lists. So what is the first operation that I'm going to perform? I'm going to first perform an append operation. So let me show you how you can do that. Let me just throw in a comment, append, and I'm going to append an element in subjects list. So for that, what I will do, I'll just type in the name of the list, which is subjects dot append, and the element that I want inside it. So I will say one more subject that I want inside it. I can say it as history. And now go ahead and print this list. So I'll type in print subjects. Now execute this. Over here, as you can see, that history has been added to our list. Our list originally included only physics, chemistry, and maths. But after performing that append operation, history has been added to our list. So this is how you can perform append. Now let us talk about insert. So insert, in that you can insert any element, but you need to specify the index. But in append, it will actually by default go on and store it after the last index. But in the insert function, you need to define the index value to where you want to store the element. So let me show you how to do that. Let me first remove all of this, and now we'll perform insert operation. And let us perform that on the same list, that is subjects. So for that, I'll type in subjects dot insert, and the index where I want it say at the first index, comma, and the element, let us give it as history again. Go ahead and print this. So yep, you can see that at the first index, history has been added. So I hope you all are clear with the difference between insert and append. In append, whatever we write, whatever element that we want to store in the list, it will by default go after the last index in the list. But when we talk about insert, we need to define, or we need to specify which index we want to store our element in. So this is the difference between insert and append. Let us move forward and see what are the other operations that you can perform with list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform an extend operation. So let me show you how to do that. Let me remove this all and let us write here extend. And now I'm going to extend subjects list with the game list. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'll type in for subjects dot extend, and I'll type in here games. Now go ahead and print this and see what happens. So what happened here? We earlier had only physics, chemistry and maths in subjects, but I extended this list and I added game list to this particular list, that is subjects. So after that it has added football, cricket and tennis as well. So this is how you can perform an extend operation. Now let us talk about remove operation, in which I want to remove a particular element. So for that what I need to do is, let me first clear all this and I'll type in here as remove, and I'll use the same list, that is subjects, and subjects dot remove, and the element that I want to remove, say I don't like chemistry that much, so yep, let us remove chemistry. Now go ahead and print it. As you can see, it has removed chemistry and there are only physics and maths available in the subjects list. Now the next operation that we are going to perform is called reverse, in which I'm going to reverse the whole list. So for that, let me first remove all of this again, and I'm going to type in here as reverse, and the name of the list, that is subjects dot reverse, and go ahead and print this particular list. So yeah, subjects, go on and print this and see what happens. So instead of physics, chemistry, maths, it has now become maths, chemistry and physics, which is the reverse of the original string. That's pretty easy, guys. There's no rocket science behind it. You're reversing a string, so for that you need to use a reverse function, that's all. Now I've also talked about concatenation and repetition when I was talking about sequence operations, right? So let me tell you about concatenation and repetition, how you can do that with lists. So first we'll see concatenation. So concatenation is pretty easy. You just need to use the plus operator. So what I'm going to type in subjects, give a space, plus games. So it'll actually concatenate both of these strings. Go ahead and execute this, and yep. This is pretty much similar to extend itself. And you can say it is exactly the same, but with the help of plus operator also you can perform the same operation. Now when we talk about repetition, I want to repeat subject, say twice. The subject list, I want to repeat it twice. So let me show you how you can do that. Repetition. Then in print statement, I'll just write in subjects, multiply symbol, and how many times I want to repeat it. Say I want to repeat it twice. So go ahead and execute this and see what happens. So as you can see, it has printed that list twice: physics, chemistry, maths, physics, chemistry, maths. So this is how you can repeat a string multiple times. So we have seen all the basic operations that you can perform with lists. So let us move forward and see what are the other sequences that are there in Python. So I'll go back to my slides once more. What are tuples? So tuples are basically lists only, but in tuples you cannot make any changes. Once you have defined a tuple, you cannot make any changes inside a tuple. If you want to add an element, you cannot do that. If you want to remove an element, you cannot do that. So basically you can consider it as a sequence of immutable Python objects. It is immutable because you cannot make any changes to it. Now there's one more difference between lists and tuples. It is basically with respect to the syntax. In tuples we use parentheses, but if you can recall, in lists we were using square brackets. But for tuples we are using parentheses, and we have taken the same example, that is fruits. We have mango, apple, grapes. Now there are various operations that you can perform with tuples. You can perform indexing, slicing, concatenation, repetition, count the number of elements and all those things. So let us go ahead and execute this practically. So again I'll open my PyCharm. This is my PyCharm, guys. So let us go ahead and define a tuple of say football players. So I'll just type in football, and notice that I am going to use parentheses because it is a tuple, not a list. So in single quotes I'll write certain names. You don't need to worry about those names. Alright, so we have a tuple of football players. Now let us define one more tuple in which we are going to write in, say, cricket players. So we have defined two tuples in which one is related to the football players and another is with respect to the cricket players. So we'll have a look at the operations that you can perform with tuples one by one. Now let us go ahead and try to update one of these tuples. So I'll try to update the football tuple. So for that what I'll do, I'll use the append function and let us see what happens. So I'm going to type in here football dot append, and the element that I want one more football player's name, so I'll type in Zola. Now go ahead and print this and see what happens. So basically we cannot actually append or update a particular tuple. So that's what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the difference between the list and tuple. So this pretty much sums it up, because you cannot update it, unlike the list where we actually performed the append operation and we added a particular element after the last index of that particular sequence or that particular list. So this is the difference between lists and tuples. Now we'll see what are the various operations that we can perform on tuples. So let me just clear this up. And we'll first perform the indexing operation. So let me write that. So what I'll do, I'll just type in a print statement, and over here I'll type football and the index that I want to print. So I want to print, say, the first index, who is a legend by the way. So it has printed Lampard. So because the first index in the tuple football is actually Lampard itself. So this is how you can perform indexing operation. And if you want to know the index of a particular element, so what you can do is you can type in print the name of the tuple dot index and the element, which is, suppose if I want to know the index number of Terry, so I'll type in Terry, go ahead and execute this, and yep, it comes at the second index because it starts from 0, 0, 1 and 2. So this is how you can perform indexing with tuples. Now you can perform slicing operation as well. So I'll type in slicing here and I'll type in a print statement, print football, and give a range from which index till which index you want. So I only want till Lampard, I don't want Terry in it. So I'll type in 0 till 2, but it won't include the second element of the list, or you can say the element which is present at the second index. Go ahead and execute this. So it will print only Hazard as well as Lampard, but it has not included Terry. So this is how you can perform the slicing operation. Now you can perform concatenation of two tuples as well. So let me type concatenation here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to concatenate football and cricket into a one single tuple. So for that, let me define one tuple and I can name it as foot crick. I know it doesn't make any sense, but yeah, let's keep it that way. So over here, what I can do is I can write in here as football plus cricket. Go ahead and execute this foot crick. And you can say Hazard, Lampard and Terry. After that comes David, Ponting and Johnson. So this is how you can perform concatenation. If you want to repeat a tuple multiple times, you can do that as well. Repetition. So I'll type in a print statement and I want to repeat that football tuple, say twice. So yep, football, multiply symbol, and if you want to print it twice, so I'll type in 2 here. If you want to print it 3 times, type in 3. So yeah, it's pretty easy guys. You can see that in front of your screen that it has printed the tuple twice. Now if you want to count a particular element, how many times it has been repeated, so you can do that as well. Count. So I'll type in print football dot count and the element name. Say if I want to see how many times Hazard has been repeated, so I'll type in Hazard. Go ahead and execute this. So yep, it has been repeated only once. So if I add it here once more, and now if I try to execute this, it should show me 2. Alright, it does. It actually shows me that it has been repeated twice. Now if I want to know total number of elements that are present in a particular tuple, so for that I'll write in here as length. In the print statement, type in football.len. Go ahead and execute this. So you can see that there are 4 elements present in the tuple: Hazard, Lampard and Terry. So these are all the basic operations that you can perform with tuples. Now one major thing to notice here is you can actually define a tuple inside a list. Yeah, you can actually do that. Let me show you how to do it. So I'll first remove all of this and let me copy this, and I'm going to type in that particular tuple here, and I'll put a comma in between and enclose this within square braces. Alright, so basically I have defined the 2 tuples inside a list, and the name of that list is football. what will be the index value for David here, or what will be the index value of Terry? Now let me tell you what happens. So this is actually the 0th element of the list, and this is the first element of the list. But inside that list, Hazard becomes a 0th element. But inside that tuple, Hazard becomes a 0th element. Again, Hazard becomes the first element. Then Lampard becomes second. Terry becomes third. Similarly, over here, David becomes the first 0th element. Ponting becomes the first element, and Johnson becomes the second element. So how am I going to print that? Let me show you how to do that. So for that, I'll type in print, name of the list, football. And if I want to print, say, Ponting. So for that, I'll type in here the first element of the list, that is a tuple. And inside that tuple, I want to print the first element of that particular tuple. So go ahead and execute this. So it has printed Ponting. Now if I want to print, say, Terry, so what I can do here, I can keep it as 0. So tell me, what should I write in here in order to print Terry? I should write 3. Go ahead and execute this, and you can see Terry has appeared over here. Now let me give you an example where you'll understand the importance of this. So for that, I'll remove all of this, and I'm going to name my list as points, and I'm going to define certain tuples inside it. So these will be x-axis as well as y-axis points. So 1, 2, give a comma, then add 3, 4, one more comma, and say 6, 7. Now, if you notice here, what advantage we get? First of all, my x-axis as well as y-axis points are constant, so I don't need to change that. So that's why I've put inside a tuple. But at the same time, I can add one more tuple, and inside that I can add some more x-axis as well as y-axis points. Or if I want to remove a particular tuple, say I don't want 3, 4 here, so I can do that as well. So this is why we actually use tuples inside a list. And let me show you how you can actually append this. So it's pretty easy. Just type in points dot append, and I want to append tuple and let it be 5, 6. Now go ahead and print points, and let us see what happens. So as you can see that it has added 5, 6 here, because I have one more x-axis and y-axis pair, so I wanted to append. At the same time, if I go ahead and write remove here, and the element that I want to remove, say I want to remove 1, 2, so 1, 2, yeah. Go ahead and print this, and you can see that it is no longer there in my list. Only 3, 4 as well as 6, 7 appears when I print it. So this is the reason why we use tuples inside list. Let us go back to our slides and see what are the other sequences that Python comes with. So the third sequence available with Python is strings. So what are strings? If you're coming from any other programming language background, if you are coming from C++, Java or anything, then you exactly know what strings are, right? In Python, for defining a string, you just need to put it in a single quotes or double quotes, as you can notice in the example that is there in front of your screen. So over here, if we have a string in which we have mango, then space, apple, then space, and then grapes. And like lists and tuples, over here also you can perform multiple operations, you can perform concatenation, you can perform repetition, membership, reverse, and all those things. So let me go ahead and execute this practically. So I'll open my PyCharm once again. All right, so let me remove all of this, and we'll define a string, and let's name it as Chelsea. So what I'm going to write here, I'll write keep the blue flag flying high. All right, so I've defined a string that contains keep the blue flag flying high with spaces in between. Over here we can perform multiple operations, as I've told you earlier as well. So the first operation that we'll perform will try to find the length of this particular string. So for that, what I'll do, I'll print in chelsea.len. Go ahead and execute this. Now as you can see that it has printed 30, that means it has 30 characters inside the Chelsea string. Now this is pretty easy, right? Now I can perform multiple operations with strings. So if I want to locate a particular character inside a string, so for that what I'll do, I'll type in a print statement, then the name of the string, that is Chelsea, dot index, in the parentheses write the character name. So if I want to see index of B, let us see what happens. Go ahead and execute this. So it is present at the 9th position. So this is how you can actually get the index value. Now if you want to count the number of times a character is repeated in a string, for that what you can do is, instead of index, just type in here as count and the character that you want. So I'll just type in here as F, and we'll see how many times F is repeated in our string. So it has been repeated twice. As you can see, F here, and there's one more F. So this is how you can actually find the number of times a character is repeated. Now I can perform slicing as well. So for that what I can do is I can just write the name of my string and the starting as well as the ending index. So if I want only till keep, so what I can do is I can write the range 0 to 4, but it won't include the fourth character. So go ahead, execute this, and it prints only keep. Now if I want to reverse a string, so for that what I can do is I can type in here as colon -1, because I've told you earlier as well, indexing, when you go in the reverse direction, it starts from -1, -2, and so on. Go ahead, execute this, and you can see that it has reversed the string that is Chelsea. It has reversed the Chelsea string. Now if I want to convert all the letters inside the string into uppercase, what I can do is I can type in here, let me first remove this, dot upper is a method that is used for it. So go ahead, execute this, and you can see that keep the blue flag flying high, it becomes in the uppercase font. Now the next operation that we can perform is we can actually print this particular string multiple times. So for that you just need to use a multiply operator, and say if I want to print it twice, so I'll just keep it as 2. If I can give a space as well, go ahead, execute this, and yep, you can see that it has printed the particular string twice. Now if I want to concatenate two strings, so for that what I can do is I can just write in here as Chelsea plus whatever I want to print. Say I want to print a name of a Chelsea legend. Go ahead, execute this. So you can see Lampard has been added. That means we have concatenated two strings. One is Lampard and another is keep the blue flag flying high. So these are all the basic operations that you can perform with string. Now there's one thing also called membership testing, which I have not discussed till now, but you can perform that with list as well as tuples. So in membership testing, as I've told you when I was describing you about various sequence operations, over there I've explained to you that membership testing is nothing but if you want to test that a particular element belongs to a sequence or not. So what I can do is I can actually perform it here. Now I'm going to define a condition. It says that if K in Chelsea, then print it is an element. It is an element. So if it is not there, then it won't print anything. But you can notice here that K is already present in my string, so it should print it is an element. Let us see if that happens or not. So yep, it has printed it is an element. Now if I go on and change this uppercase K to a lowercase k, which is not there in my string, it won't print anything. All right. And if I write here Z, which is again not there in my string, so let us see what happens. It won't print anything. So this is how membership testing works. So if I write here not in and go ahead and execute this, then it will print it as an element because Z is not inside this string. So when I go ahead and print it, it will give me it is an element. But at the same time, if I write in here as uppercase K, which is there in my string, it won't print anything. So this is how membership testing works. Now let me open my slides and we'll continue forward and we'll see what are the other sequences that are there in Python. So what are set? You can consider set as a sequence that contains only unique objects that will have no repeated objects and all of them are immutable. That means you cannot change anything. If you have a particular element inside a set, it will always be there. You cannot update it. Now you can relate to the set that you have studied in your mathematics. If you can recall, over there you would have performed multiple operations like intersection, a union, all those things, right? So in Python also you can do that. Now when we talk about syntax for sets, it is actually a list of items inside curly braces. That's all. And all of them are separated by comma. So in list we were using square brackets, in tuples we were using parentheses, but in sets we are using curly braces. Now with sets also you can perform multiple operations like slicing, adding an element, clear, copy, all those things. And all these things happens in a similar way like we have done in tuples and lists. So what I'll be focusing on set operations like intersection, union and all those things, because I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do slicing as well as indexing and all those things that we have done that in lists and tuples. So I'll go ahead and open my PyCharm.
Now let me first remove all of this, and I'm going to define a set. I'm going to name it as integers, and within curly braces I'm going to write in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And one thing that I want you to notice here is if I repeat a particular element more than once, it'll actually convert that and it'll display it only once. So even if I write 6 twice and I'll try to print this, it'll actually print 6 only once. Let me show you. So yep, as you can see, 6 is present only once, even though I've written that twice in my set. So set is basically a collection of unique objects. Now let us perform operations on this particular set. So the first operation that we'll perform, we are going to discard a particular element from here. So I'm going to type in integers dot discard, and which element I want to discard. Say I don't want 4, so I'll keep it as 4, and now I'm going to print it integers. Go ahead, execute this, and yep, you can see that 4 is no longer there in my set. Alright, so the next operation that we are going to focus on is union. I hope you guys exactly know what union is. So basically union is nothing but you are adding something, right? There's a union, as the name itself tells it, so it is basically a union. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define one more set, and let me name it as real. And over here I'm going to write in some more integer values, say 7, 6, 8, 9. Now I'm going to perform a union operation that will combine both of them. So print integers union real. Go ahead and execute this and see what happens. So as you can see that it has actually combined both of these sets into a one single set, and you can see the elements as well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now the third operation that we are going to focus on is called intersection. Now let's go ahead and see when I try to print the intersection what happens. Print integers intersection. For that we use ampersand and real. Let us see what happens. So there's only one element that is common, that is 6. So it has printed 6 over here. Now the third operation that we'll be focusing on is called difference, and I'm pretty sure all of you know what exactly difference is. So whatever the uncommon elements are there, that will be printed. So for that I'm going to type in print integers, and for difference we use the hyphen symbol and real. Go ahead, execute this. Now as you can see that it has printed 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now why it has printed that? Because difference is nothing but the set minus set intersection the other set that we are talking about. In our case it will be integers minus the intersection of integers and real. So that is why it has printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and not 6, because if you notice the intersection between integers and real is 6, so it has removed that and has printed 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Alright, so the next operation that we are going to focus on is called symmetric difference. So for that, first I'll remove all of this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform symmetric difference. Now symmetric difference means nothing but all the uncommon elements between the two sets that will be printed. So let's just see if that happens. For that we use the XOR operator. So the first set, that is integers, and the caret symbol or the XOR operator, whatever you want to say, real. Go ahead, execute this. So it has printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 and 9, but it has not printed 6. Why? Because it is the common element between both of the sets. So basically what it is union of uncommon elements, you can say. So these are all the basic operations that you can perform with sets. You can even convert a list into a tuple. So let me show you all those operations, or you can say all those type conversions. So for that I'll remove all of this, and instead of a set I'll make it as a list. And I'm going to repeat certain elements. So I'm going to type in 4, 5, 6 and 7 and 1. So this is my list. If I want to convert this to a set, I'm going to define a variable q, and I'll type in here a set integers. Go ahead and print q, and we'll see what happens. So as you can see that it has converted the list into a set, and we know that set only contains unique objects. So you can see that 5 has been repeated twice, 4 has been repeated twice, even 6 has been repeated twice, and even 1 has been repeated twice. So it has removed all of those and it has printed them only once. So this is how you can convert a list into a set. Similarly, if I want to convert this list into a tuple, what I can do is I just need to write here tuple, go ahead, execute this. So it has converted this to a tuple. So this is how you can perform type conversions. Now let us move forward and have a look at the last sequence present in Python, that is called dictionaries. So what are dictionaries? Dictionaries can be considered as a sequence that contains key value pair. Now what does that mean? That means to every key there is a value attached. Let me explain you with the help of an example that is there in front of your screen. So over here we have a dictionary D, and inside that dictionary we have a key here that is 1, colon, the value that is assigned to this particular key, and that is nothing but a string, that is value. Similarly, we have one more key, and that key is actually key only, which is of string type, colon, the value assigned to it is an integer, that is 2. So basically it is a key value pair, and you enclosed all of these within curly braces. Now when you go on and print D of 1, that is nothing but the key, then it will print the value that is attached to D of 1, or you can say the value that is attached to key 1. But if I go on and print D of 2, 2 is nothing but a value and there is no key here, that is 2, so it will give us an error. This is how things work in dictionaries. Now with dictionaries also you can perform multiple operations, like you can find the length, you can delete, and you can perform membership testing, all those things. So we'll have a look at these operations one by one. So I'll go back to my PyCharm and I'll execute all of these operations practically. Alright, let me first remove all this, and now I'm going to define a dictionary. Let it be student, and inside curly braces I'm going to throw in some key value pairs. So let the first key be name. The name attached to it will be Dave. Give a comma, and I want his age as well, so I'm going to type in age, and let's say he's 32 years old. Now what if I want to print the name of this particular student? So for that I'll type in print the name of the dictionary and the key attached to the value that I want to print, which is nothing but name. Go ahead, execute this, and you can see that Dave has been printed. Now what if I want to add one more key value pair to this particular dictionary? So for that what I'll type the name of this particular dictionary first, and then for the name of that particular dictionary, and the key that I want to add in here, say I want to add his gender. Let it be male. Now go ahead and print the student dictionary, and you will see that one more key value pair has been added. As you can see, gender is the key and male is the value that I was talking about. So now let me remove all of this. So now I'm going to tell you how to delete a particular key value pair. So for that what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in student dot pop, and the key that I want to delete, say I want to delete the name. Now go ahead and print this dictionary and see what happens. So as you can see, there's only one key value pair available. Key is age and value is 32. Alright, so let me just remove all of this and tell you how to actually clear your dictionary. So for that what you need to do is you need to type in name of your dictionary, clear, that's all. Go ahead, execute this, and you will say that nothing is there in your dictionary now. So this is how you can actually delete a dictionary. Now what if I want to update a particular value attached to a key? Say I want to change the name, that from Dave I want to change it to say Robin. So for that what I'll do, I'll type in student, the key that is name, and the value that I want to replace it with, say I want to make it as Robin. Go ahead and print this student dictionary, and you'll see that Robin has appeared over there. So yep, as you can see that it has changed the name from Dave to Robin. So these are the basic operations that you can perform with dictionaries. This is the last sequence. By this time we are coming to the end of today's session. Thank you and have a great day.